"The Big Sur air is bad for your knees, Eleanor. We'll airdrop photos." That was the exact sentence. My daughter-in-law, Claire, delivered it with a smile so careful it almost looked rehearsed. At first, I laughed because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. The wedding was being held on a private stretch of coastline near Big Sur. Remote, expensive, dramatic. The kind of place people choose because every photograph already looks filtered before anyone edits it. Claire folded her hands on the cafe table. "We just don't want you struggling out there." The words were gentle. The decision wasn't. I looked at my son, Daniel. He stared into his coffee. Not once during that conversation did anyone ask what I wanted. Not once did anyone ask whether my knees were actually preventing me from traveling. I was 68, not 98. Yes, arthritis slowed me down sometimes. Yes, I carried a folding cane on difficult days. But 6 months earlier, I'd spent a week walking through museums in Chicago with no problems beyond the usual soreness. What hurt wasn't being underestimated. It was being managed. The wedding continued without me. Family members talked about seating charts, sunset ceremonies, shuttle schedules. Every conversation reminded me of the same fact. Everyone knew I wasn't coming. My friends expected outrage. Instead, I felt confused. Claire had never openly disliked me. We weren't especially close, but we'd always been polite. That was what made the situation so difficult. If she'd insulted me, I could have responded. If she'd been cruel, I could have defended myself. Instead, she wrapped exclusion in concern. And concern is harder to argue with. Daniel called occasionally. Every conversation sounded cautious. "We just want everything stress-free. We're thinking about what's best. You know, Claire worries." I stopped explaining myself after a while. People rarely listen once they've convinced themselves they're protecting you. So I stayed quiet. A month before the wedding, problems started appearing, small ones at first. The access road to the venue required repairs after storms. Several vendors complained about transportation limitations. A shuttle company withdrew unexpectedly. Then came a series of safety reviews connected to guest access and emergency planning. The venue coordinator sent updates to everyone involved. Suddenly, the wedding wasn't simply a beautiful destination event. It was a complicated logistical project. I only learned about it because Daniel called one evening sounding exhausted. "I don't think I've slept all week. I listened. For nearly 40 years, I had organized family reunions, charity fundraisers, church events, and community programs. Managing chaos was practically a hobby." As Daniel described the problems, solutions started forming in my head. I offered a few suggestions, nothing dramatic: alternative transportation staging, guest grouping, backup timing windows, a different approach to vendor arrivals. Daniel thanked me. That was all. Then he called again 2 days later. And again after that. Soon the venue coordinator was asking questions through him. Then a family member reached out directly. Then another. The strange thing was that nobody suddenly decided I was brilliant. The idea simply worked. Meanwhile, the venue's management team completed a formal review and issued new recommendations. Several original plans had to change. The announcement affected everyone. Not just me, not just elderly guests, everyone: the wedding party, family members, friends, vendors. The reality of the location was proving more complicated than the fantasy. For the first time, the conversation shifted away from controlling risk and toward managing reality. I noticed something changing, not in Claire and everyone else. People who had quietly accepted my exclusion began asking questions. Questions I never raised myself. If transportation accommodations could be arranged for dozens of guests, why couldn't accommodations have been arranged for one family member? If flexibility was possible now, why hadn't it been possible before? Nobody asked those questions publicly. They didn't need to. The questions existed. That was enough. A few weeks before the ceremony, Daniel arrived at my house unannounced. He looked tired, older somehow. We sat on the porch. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Finally, he said, "I should have handled things differently." It wasn't a dramatic apology, no tears, no speeches. Just a simple sentence, the kind that takes effort because it doesn't hide behind explanations. I nodded. "Yes," I said. He stared at the yard. I thought I was keeping everyone happy. There it was, the truth, not malice, not cruelty. Cordice mixed with convenience, a much more common problem. He had mistaken avoiding conflict for solving it. The wedding happened 3 weeks later. I attended, not because I fought my way back in, not because someone dramatically reversed course. I attended because practical reality eventually forced everyone to reconsider assumptions that should never have been made in the first place. The ceremony itself was beautiful. The ocean was calm. The weather cooperated. Claire was polite. I was polite. Neither of us pretended everything had been resolved. Some things aren't trust. Once cracked, doesn't repair itself on schedule. During the reception, I watched Daniel and Claire dancing beneath strings of lights overlooking the water. I felt something unexpected. Not victory, certainly not revenge, just clarity. Claire had believed control was the same thing as care. Daniel had believed silence was the same thing as peace. Reality had corrected both ideas, quickly, without punishment, without spectacle. As the evening ended, guests gathered for photographs against the coastline. Someone asked me to join. I stepped into the frame. The wind coming off the ocean was cold. My knees hurt a little, not enough to matter. When the photographer counted down, I smiled, not because everything was fixed, because for the first time in months, nobody was deciding what I could handle except me.